no statements, no photos, no explanations. And somehow, that silence became louder than any confirmation ever could. It started quietly, almost unnoticeably. There was no dramatic unfollow, no public fallout, no teary interview or carefully worded apology. Just absence. Dylan Wang and Shen Yue, once effortlessly linked to the minds of fans through shared screens, shared laughter, and shared history, simply stopped appearing together in the ways people had grown used to. At first, fans told themselves it meant nothing. After all, careers evolve, projects overlap, schedules clash. Two people can be busy without meaning anything more. But then came the patterns, the gaps, the moments where something was expected, but never came. No birthday posts, no casual mentions, no behind-the-scenes throwbacks, and most noticeably no denials. In an industry where rumors are often shut down within hours, their silence felt deliberate, almost strategic. And that's what made fans start reading between every single line that wasn't spoken. Because when you don't say anything at all, people listen even harder. There was a time when Dylan Wang and Shen Yue didn't have to try. Their chemistry spoke for them. Interviews felt relaxed, unscripted. They teased each other naturally, laughed without hesitation, shared stories that made it obvious they were comfortable in each other's presence. Fans didn't need confirmation back then. It felt visible, almost tangible, which is why the contrast feels so sharp now. When Dylan Wang began promoting his newer projects, fans noticed something immediately. He spoke passionately about his roles, his growth, the pressure of expectations, but never once referenced a chapter that had introduced him to millions. Shen Yue's name, once spoken so easily, was now completely absent. And when Shen Yue sat down for her own interviews, the pattern continued. She smiled. She answered thoughtfully. She redirected questions with practiced grace. But whenever the topic drifted too close to the past, too close to him, her answers softened and then stopped. Not cold, not bitter, just carefully unfinished. That's when fans started to notice the difference between avoidance and protection, because silence can mean many things. Sometimes it's distance, sometimes it's closure, and sometimes it's a boundary set to keep something intact. The internet, of course, didn't stay quiet. Clips were rewatched. Old interviews resurfaced. Fans compared body language, tone changes, even pauses between sentences. A single smile became a headline. A neutral expression became a theory. Every detail, no matter how small, was examined under a microscope. And still no statements. No photos. No corrections. It was as if both sides had silently agreed that the story would no longer be told publicly, which only made people wonder what happened privately. Because when two public figures actively choose silence, it's rarely accidental. Industry insiders have long talked about image timing, the idea that certain narratives are encouraged or paused depending on career trajectory. New roles require fresh branding. Old associations can overshadow current projects. Sometimes, silence isn't emotional at all. Sometimes it's strategic. But fans weren't convinced this was only about work, because even strategy has cracks. Like the moment Dylan Wang was asked a seemingly harmless question about chemistry with past co-stars. He laughed, deflected, and answered broadly, but his tone shifted, just slightly, enough for longtime viewers to notice. Or the time Shen Yue spoke about learning to let certain chapters stay private, without giving context, without naming names. Her words were gentle, reflective, but weighted. Those weren't denials. They were pauses. And pauses often mean there's something still there, just not meant to be shared. Fans began to split into camps. Some believed the silence meant it was over, that whatever once existed had naturally faded, and both had simply moved on. No drama, no bitterness, just life. Others believed the opposite, that the silence was proof of something unresolved, that if it truly meant nothing, it would be easy to say so, that the absence of denial was more telling than confirmation ever could be. And then there were those who believed something more complex, that Dylan Wang and Shen Yue had made a quiet agreement to protect the past, not to exploit it, not to deny it, just to leave it untouched. Because sometimes the most meaningful stories aren't meant for headlines. They're meant to be kept. It's important to remember that fame changes the rules of emotion. What might be a private memory for ordinary people becomes public property the moment you're recognizable. Every smile is analyzed. Every interaction is archived. And sometimes the only way to keep something real is to stop sharing it altogether. Fans noticed that even mutual friends avoided bringing them up in the same sentence. That collaborations that once felt possible were quietly avoided. That event seating arrangements, guest lists, and schedules never seemed to overlap. None of this was announced. None of it was explained. It simply happened, which suggests planning. And planning suggests intention. What makes this silence so compelling is that it doesn't feel like avoidance driven by discomfort. There's no tension, no visible resentment. Instead, there's restraint, control, a kind of mutual respect that doesn't require explanation. That's why the title No Statements, No Photos resonates so deeply. Because in today's digital age, not posting is a choice. Not speaking is a choice. And every choice tells a story. There was a time when fans expected closure, a definitive answer, a clear label. But as months passed, expectations shifted. People began to understand that maybe closure wasn't coming. Not because something went wrong, but because something mattered. And matters don't always end loudly. Sometimes they fade quietly, leaving behind echoes instead of noise. Dylan Wang continues to rise, his roles becoming more complex, his image more refined. Shen Yue continues to grow, choosing projects that challenge her, redefining herself beyond familiar labels. Their paths, at least publicly, no longer intersect. But every so often, something subtle happens. A lyric choice in a playlist, a phrase repeated from an old interview, a look that lingers half a second too long when asked about the past. And fans notice, because fans always notice. What's striking is that neither of them has ever asked fans to stop speculating. There's been no frustration, no defensive tone, just distance, calm, neutrality, almost as if speculation was expected. But engagement wasn't. That's not how people act when they're trying to erase something. That's how people act when they're protecting it. In the end, the silence surrounding Dylan Wang and Shen Yue may never be broken. There may never be a statement, a photo, or a confirmation that satisfies curiosity. And maybe that's exactly the point. Because not every story needs an ending that the public can consume. Some stories are allowed to exist only in memory. And perhaps the reason fans are still reading between every line is because the lines were never meant to be spoken out loud. Silence, after all, isn't empty. Sometimes it's full of everything that was too real to share.